If you don't go and try and put out that fire, mark my fucking words, you're going to get to the end of that job, and I guarantee you this, 100%. I don't say the 100% too often. 100% in the contracting world, this is the part that sucks. When the game is over, the game is over.
Until right now, this very moment, contractors have always been on their own, not as tradespeople, but being alone and knowing how to take their business to the next level. They call us working class, they call us blue collar. They say that we don't have the smarts to become the business owner that we're meant to be. That is such bullshit. You have the ability. You're more than any of that. The question really is, where do you get the insights that you need specific to contracting to systemize your business so you can get your profits to pay for your freedom? I'm Andrew Houston. I'm going to show you how to make more profits, how to get more control, how to get more freedom in the simplest, quickest way possible without any of that bullshit. Welcome to the No Bullshit Podcast for Contractors. Listen up, level up, and if you learn something, like the video, subscribe to the channel, change your business, change your life.
Hey, Rockstars, Andrew Houston here with another No Bullshit Podcast for Contractors. What are we talking about today? And should you even be listening? Well, let's see. Does this resonate with you? Setting yourself up for success before your jobs even kick off is what we're going to be talking on today. And it's super critical. It's that time of the year. Things are getting busy. Things are starting to rock the house. And I'm here with one of our Rockstar coaches, Barbara. Welcome, Barbara. How's it going?
Thanks so much for having me, Andrew. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited for you to be here as well, because you've had some great success with clients in so many different areas. One of the biggest areas, that you've had, great success with, and one of your geniuses is this concept of like how important it is that, we slow down the speed up, that to take the time to really plan for success. Now, I mean, we can talk about, we're going to maybe bring this back to different aspects of planning, but right now we're going to be talking about the importance of getting ready, almost like pre-planning before the job starts. So let's talk about this from the perspective of who would be the right audience to be listening to this, or even better yet, what would be some of the language or comments that you would hear from some of our champion CEOs when you're working with them that make you go, you could probably benefit from this? Like, what are some of the pain points and struggles that you're hearing for something like this?
Well, I know that typically if I say to a client, how long is this job going to take you to do? They say, well, maybe about 4 to 6 weeks. So there's a difference between 4 weeks and 6 weeks on the bottom line. Because if you're kind of putting a job quote together and you don't know how long it's going to take, that is extra weeks of fixed costs that are not being taken into consideration.
Right.
Pushes your other jobs. You're not on the next job site in an efficient time. And a lot of the times they say, but I don't have time to sit down and pre-plan. I just need to get on to the next job. And really, that is taking you down at the knees.
Interesting. It's sort of like that little bit of a conundrum. It's like, hey man, you got these champion CEO contractors that are like, I don't have time because I'm so tied up in the jobs needing me. And yet you want me to take time to actually help address this problem? Like, somebody might be listening going, they might be like, I just, maybe I don't really care about doing this pre-planning. Like, I just got to get out there. Like, maybe you're driving in the truck. So there's one area. So we'll come back to that in a second. What are, say, one or two other things that you hear language-wise that triggers you to go, just a second there. You got to slow down here.
A lot of things has to do with time management. Really not getting a handle on your time management and thinking you could do a million things in one day, and you haven't actually sat. I like to do it the night before. Before one client says, I don't want night terrors, right? This is what
night terrors, yeah.
It's thinking about the next day, what needs to happen the next day, and how long it's actually going to take. And just, backtracking on that. If you actually pre-plan your job where day, what you're going to be doing, and are you on track or not on track? You are just executing. You have pre-planned it, and now it's a blueprint for you to just execute and your team.
Love it. Love it. So, if you're listening on this and you're like, I'm having night terrors, you're waking up, you got to go for a pee in the morning, haven't had a few pints, and as soon as you wake up to go to the washroom, it's 3:00 in the morning. You're like, holy shit, man. That I ordered the material for that job. Oh man, I wonder if the guys have what they need, for tomorrow. And it just cycles. Any last one?
Yeah, a lot of the times, clients are saying, I just need to get off the job and on to the next one. I just need to get off the job and get on to the next one. How long is it going to be? I'm not exactly sure. So it is one thing that permeates every part of the job, and it can be so taken care of before you step on the job site.
Okay, so I love this. Okay, before we get into this, I'm going to give you, there's quite a few that I got. I'm going to give you the one that how do I put this? I'm going to bring up something which is a symptom of this being part of the problem. If you're not making the money that you want to be making, let alone should be making, that you want to be making, I know that this is part of your problem. If I ask you and I go, you got, say I go, how many, 2 questions. I go, how many jobs you got on the go right now? Guy goes, I don't know, I got 10 jobs on the go right now. I said, okay. You got less than 30 seconds to tell me which ones are on track, off track, or ahead of schedule. Go. And they look at me like deer in the headlights. Oh, time's up. And what do I mean by that, Barbara?
That's flying by your seat of your pants.
That's it right there. That's it right there. Guys, if you're reactive, if you're like constantly just putting out fires, man, we could go on for the rest of this podcast of all these symptoms, but let's get into the core of this. All right. So they got all these symptoms. Okay. They got all these emotions. They got all this verbiage and they want help. So where does what's the approach to this? You're on a call, pretend this is like this is one of your, rockstar coaching sessions. Okay. With a client. Let's just walk through like the conversation, right? Like, how should these people listening in go like, all right, guys, you sort of got my attention because I'm feeling all those things or some of those things, or that's the language I'm using, or it's the language in my head. Like, how do we approach this? What's some of the first steps to look at this to get us going with it, to see enough value in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have this conversation at the very beginning when clients are starting to talk about doing estimates, right? And I say, okay, so what is the number you came up with? And they said it's X. And I say, okay, well, how do we know that's true? I say, how many days is this going to take you? We go back to the first question. Well, about, right? We know we're going down that path, start that conversation. And I say to them, we need to put this in our production schedule. I typically use a Gantt chart. I love the way the Gantt chart goes, where we've got the number of days and what the tasks are that happen each day. Each day, yes, you have to sit and you have to walk through this in your mind. You're living the job before you get on site. It's similar to musicians that practice. It's similar to athletes, elite athletes that practice, and they do in their mind visualizations of actually running the race. This is what you're doing. You're finding your holes. You're making sure you've got enough days in your production schedule, and then you put in float days. So when things do go off the rails, which you know they're going to, you've already accounted for it.
I love it. I love it. Is it that simple?
Yeah, you create the blueprint and then you execute and you make sure your team's on board. And if you want to talk to your crew chief, I'm a big proponent. I know I had a basement and underpinning company. My partner did the estimates, and we always said, okay, so we're doing the estimate. This is the estimate. This is even before we've signed the contract. We look at the job. We say, is this a normal 4 to 6 week job, or there's this weird thing that's going to happen? Let's ask our crew chief, his opinion of how much time he needs on that job. And
Right.
I'd say, oh, you know, give me some extra guys and 3 extra days. We put it in the estimate in our production schedule. And then we've got the blueprint when the client says, of course, you're the best person to work for us.
Right.
We just give it to our production crew, right?
Yep. Totally. So let's just take a step back. Everybody listening in, you're like, wait a second, you're talking about planning these jobs, pre-planning these jobs. By the way, anybody wants to get a copy of it, we've got nice little 1-page document called the job site cheat sheet. And, it's got these 3 phases, the pre-planning, right? The running and the finishing, side of it as well. But right now we're talking about the pre-planning. Okay. And we're just focusing on like, what do we got to do, as far as laying this, mapping this out. Okay. It's really mapping out this journey, right? It's no different than you plug in, hey man, I want to go to this city, want to go to this town, or, going on a dinner date or something like that. You plug it in, you've never been there before, and you map it out. And it tells you turn left, you go, for an hour, you stay on this highway, then you make a left-hand turn for 5 minutes, and you make a, like, I'm serious, team. Okay. It's a similar concept. Now you might be aware of these Gantt charts, guys. You might be aware of, yeah, I get that. But if it's not hitting home, I really want to nail this. Okay. Here's the no bullshit about this. You're not going to like what I'm about to tell you. Some of you are not going to like it. Okay. Especially the ones that this is the case. Being a tradie back in the day, when I got to that stage of enough pain, enough frustration, enough lack of profits and cash flow, and just way too much chaos and a way less control, I had to realize that slowing down was the best thing that I could do to speed up, and laying out these maps, these Gantt charts for these projects was absolutely crucial. But I'm going to tell you, the first thing when I started doing it was I was a little bit intimidated. And I'll tell you why, Barbara. Okay. Because when I started laying it out, compared to how I used to quote, it really made me question my skill set. Because before I'd go and quote a job, yeah, it sort of looks like this. This is about, like you're saying, it's about 3 to 4 weeks. So then I quote 3 to 4 weeks, and it's roughly this and it's roughly that. You see, what happens, guys, when you start laying this out? Now, some of you might be better than I was at it, okay? But when I started really breaking it out in chunks of like, here's the demolition, it's going to take this much time. Then we got to do the rough in. Then we got to do the freaking, main feeds. Then it really challenged me around my ability of knowing things down to that detail. And it was a little bit intimidating. But here's the best part of it. One of the best parts of doing this, correct me if I'm wrong, is you get the repeat success. What do I mean by that, Barbara?
Absolutely. Because the first one is some heavy lifting. I mean, that's the reality.
That's right.
First time you do one, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to have a nap. You're going to come back to it, because this is where what I call is you find your holes. Where you think in your head, okay, it's going to go smoothly. And when you actually plot it out, you're like, well, now I've got to be 2 places at the same time. How's that going to work, right? This is where you find the holes.
Yep.
And then you run it in your head.
Yep.
In the first couple of ones that you do, that you give to your crew to execute, you're going to be asking for their feedback on it. And,
right.
What else did we miss? Or is there another way we can do it? So by the 10th time, you've got your blueprint. And then whenever you're quoting on a new job and you've got your scope of services, you actually say, okay, so this is typical to, oh, wow, okay, that's something different. So then you do the same process with that, and you get your team involved, and you get their expertise and their eyes on it. So now you're just adding to the blueprint for the next time you quote it. It's going to be easy, but it's not just easy. It's going to be profitable.
Totally. And, there's so many things that come out of this. Okay, guys, I'm not shitting you. Okay. It's true. And we're going to talk about how you get started, okay, in just a little bit, because just picking any project is not the right approach, okay? And we're going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes here. But I want to tell you this. When you start breaking it out, it's good that you start asking yourself questions. The reason that you start asking yourself questions is, in all honesty, in my opinion, because the human mind always wants to improve itself. It wants to improve the results it gets. It wants to improve its efficiency. It wants to improve things, okay? And it's asking you, you're asking yourself questions because they're valid to be asked, because you need those answers. So the good part is, just a bit of a repeat here, is exactly that. You get to rinse and repeat. So when something worked, when something went to plan, you can go, hey man, because a lot of jobs that contractors do, let's face it, there is a lot of similarities. Okay, they're never going to be exactly the same, but there's a lot of similarities. Okay, and when you can start dialing this in to become more systematized, you're basically creating recipes for success, and that is huge. Okay, so what are some of the things that, contractors are listening in, like, they've got all these quotes to do. Okay, they're overwhelmed already. And Barbara, look, I'm asking these questions and we didn't go through all this, but this is what this is about. It's no bullshit. Okay, so let's just walk through this. So, like, they got all these things, all these jobs they got to quote, and they've never done a Gantt chart. They've never laid it out in that format. They got small jobs, they got medium jobs, they got big jobs, and obviously the bigger they are, the more complex they get. Where do they start? Starting is, there's only really one job that they can truly start at. They can't, like, in all honesty, guys, there's only one number one. You can't start at 5 different places. You're really only starting at one place. So how do they know where to start?
Well, I'm a big proponent of, let's set ourselves up for success. And if you are already in the fetal position, this is just too much, then, forget it. Start with the smallest job you've got to quote, right?
You got it.
So you want to start with the smallest job, which on a bigger job is a piece of the bigger job, right? So you start with the smallest job. Let's get that systematized. Let's get that. You've got confidence in that. And you're like, oh, if you're a general contractor, it's like, that was the drain portion. Okay, we know that piece works. What's the next small piece we're going to do? So you do it in stages. And you're reflecting and you're going back, you're sweeping back and saying, did that work? Great. How can we tighten that up? Let's move on to the next one. But you gotta plant your flag somewhere and just start. Start with the one that you find least overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember our ICE acronym?
ICE: impact, confidence, and experience.
Yeah, experience/ease. Like, guys, think about it. So you start with the biggest project. Yes, it's going to have impact, but the confidence factor, if you've never done one of these Gantt charts before, is going to be low. And you don't want to start, like Barbara's saying, with the thing that's going to be the most overwhelming. And the other thing about starting with the smallest is it's the easiest thing for you to break down. And if you loop it back to impact, it is actually going to have the quickest impact. Okay? Because the thing is, with bigger jobs, overall, you can have a bigger impact, but in as far as time goes, you got a 4-month job versus a job that's 2 weeks. Okay, as an example, you could create the Gantt chart in a very, very short period of time and have impact with confidence super quickly. You're going to have impact, actually, guys, before the job even starts. So let's talk about this for a second here as far as the Gantt chart. Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper. So now we know we've got to start with smaller jobs. Okay. Now, I maybe position this a little bit wrong in the sense of saying, like, hey, we got a bunch of these quotes, but let's just pause for a second and bucketize. So we picked smaller jobs, but we got 3 different types of buckets when we look at projects. Okay. We got the projects that are to be quoted, that are small. Again, we picked small, less complicated, going to have the biggest impact. So there's jobs that we got to quote that are small. We got jobs that are running midstream. Okay. And we got jobs that are finishing. Where would you, breaking it down to that level, where should they start this Gantt chart process?
Well, I like starting at the beginning. So, I mean, I would say there's 2 places you can start.
Yep.
One, on brand new quotes.
Yep.
And also on jobs. If you're in the middle of a job and you don't know if you're going to be profitable, you don't know if you're going to be
Yep.
on time and on budget. Like, stop wherever you are and create the Gantt chart from where you are.
Yep.
Because once the client signs their estimate, they're agreeing to this timeline and they're agreeing to this budget. That's your blueprint. So wherever you are on a project, let's make it work, right?
Yeah, guys, this is huge. Okay, so at some stage here, and it's not the ideal, but fucking life isn't ideal. Business isn't ideal. But what we got to really ask ourselves is you got to go with your gut. Okay? And what do I mean by your gut? I want you to traffic light these small jobs you've got. Now, if you only got one small job, guys, it's pretty fucking easy. Okay, that's what you're going to focus in on. Okay? As far as, hey, I got no small jobs on the go right now, running or about to finish. And all I have is some small jobs that I got to quote. Start with those. Okay, pretty simple. But that's normally not the case. Most of the champion scale contractors we work with have got jobs that are currently running midstream. They're only partway through the project. They got jobs they're finishing, and they got jobs that they're quoting. So the place, guys, that you want to start back to, what's going to meet that ICE acronym, biggest impact that you got confidence on, that is the easiest thing to address, is you got to go with your gut to go based upon the jobs that are running right now. Which ones are on fire? Which one is the worst? Why? Because, guys, you don't get to go back to the client and say, you know what? I'm going to redo this all over again, and you're going to pay me all my expenses and material and everything to do it all over again. Right, Barbara?
100%.
Right. So when we focus in on the one that's on fire the most, what tends to happen with that when they start laying out the Gantt chart? What starts popping?
Well, we know something's going off the rails. Typically it's, oh dear, I think we're off the rails. And then it's, I'm pretty confident we're off the rails. And then it's like, holy crap, we're off the rails. So you want to get to, I think we're going off the rails. Like, that's where you plant your plan.
Yes.
If you have not done the Gantt chart, let's do the Gantt chart, the production schedule, and see, like, how long is this going to actually take us, and where we're going off the rails. How do we bring it back on? How do we add some more labor to it? I'd rather add 2 labor guys for one day than almost at the end, and now we've got 4 days over budget, 4 days over labor, and now we're throwing like as many guys as we can. Like, this is just, at that point, saves when your gut went, I think we're going off the rails.
It's interesting. What comes to mind for me is sports. Okay. And you guys have heard me, bring things back to sports all the time. I'm not some sports addict, by the way. Okay. I played a lot of sports as a kid, but I didn't watch that much sports. I still don't watch that much sports, but I love sports. Okay. So, well, how does it got anything to do with sports? You see, the interesting thing, guys, think about this for a second. If you've ever played sports, most tradies have played it or they watch it or something. Okay. And even if you haven't, you'll get this. The players and the coach are looking at the scoreboard all the time. All the time. Honestly, if you don't even watch any sports, please just take 10 minutes, watch the hockey that's going on right now. Watch the eyes of the players and watch the coach. They're honest. Every time there's a whistle, everybody looks up. Looks up. Looks up. Why are they looking up? Why are they looking up, Barbara?
Because you got to keep your eyes on what's going on, big picture, so you can actually make adjustments.
That's it. If, guys, seriously, it's the third period. There's fucking 10 minutes left. It's a tie game. Do they make adjustments to who's going to be on the ice? Yes, they do, guys. If they're winning 4-0, what do? They're like, keep doing what we're doing. And guess what? Burn the clock. Burn the clock. Burn the clock. That's what they're making decisions throughout the whole game. Now think about that. For us, this totally makes sense. But you know what the funny thing is? how these projects go is a direct correlation to, in all honesty, the success that we have with our business, especially as a contractor. So why do you think they don't do it, Barbara?
They don't want
Honestly.
to.
Huh?
I think it's going off the rails, but I just need to get through it. I'll tell you a story, Andrew. When we were doing jobs in the underpinning business, so we had the Gantt chart that the foreman approved to before we got the sign off from the client and got the contract actually signed off on. So then we would have our meeting with our foreman and say, okay, we're just going to go through this. It's pretty similar to normal, but we've got this section. We've already talked to you about it. Great. So they'd say, okay, great. They do any pre-production that they needed to do before they went on site. They'd get our trailer sorted out. They'd make sure we had all the supplies. That's pre-production before you step on site.
Yep.
You go on site. And I speak to the foreman every day. I was the director of finance. And I'd say, so how are we doing? Oh, we're not bad. Next day, how are we doing? Well, we're a little bit behind. Okay, we're on day 2 of a 30-day job. We're already behind. And I'd say to them, so what needs to happen here? If we've got a couple of float days, and each float day has extra labor in it. Clients already signed off on this as part of our budget. What could get us back on track? And the foreman would say, give me one of those labor guys for tomorrow, and then we'll be back on track.
Yep.
And then we're on track again. It doesn't compound, because when it compounds.
Yes, that's it. That's huge. That's huge. That's huge. You're like, yeah, but Barbara, that cost me, a guy an extra 4 or 8 hours. But guys, Barbara is just nailed something huge. The compound effect of being behind schedule. Okay, the compound effect of not using the right material or too much material. Trust me, guys, it compounds. And give us an example. Elaborate on the compounding effect.
Well, I'll tell you what the compounding effect is. When you're over budget, you've got fixed expenses that are just coming out of your bank account because they're not being charged to a job. Then you've got your next client going, I thought you were going to be here. Now you've upset your next client. Like, it is not just one compounding. It is multiple systems and areas in your business that get compounded. And you have night terrors. Andrew, night terror.
No, it's true, because here's the thing. If you don't do this, guys, you're not going to know how to get back on track. Okay? You're not going to know how to stay on track. And you're not even going to be able to celebrate the successes of being ahead of schedule and like everybody, getting the benefit of like, guys, great job. So what ends up happening? We end up like just dealing with more bullshit because it literally is compounded bullshit. It's crazy. I'm going to give one last example here, or analogy. Okay. So being a licensed electrician, I used to be doing robotics and automation, industrial controls, and all that stuff. I'll never forget. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is crazy. I'll never forget. I said to this guy, there's me and this other electrician. We both got apprentices. And the one guy is starting at one end of the factory with his apprentice, and I'm starting at the other end of the factory with my apprentice. Now the goal, absolutely clear, is we're supposed to meet sort of like halfway.
I could just hear this.
Yeah, no, totally. I swear to God. And so, me being who I am, I'm not trying to be a perfectionist, but I'm a little bit anal back in the day. And I could, if anything was off level, I'd be just like crazy, fix it. Right. So anyways, here I am. I go to give the apprentice, I got to work on some controls. The electrician at the other end's got to work on some controls, and we're getting these apprentices to install these pipes. Okay. That are supposed to connect halfway. You know what's happening. You know what's going to happen here. So all of a sudden, it's like, it's almost the end of a day. Okay. And myself and the other electrician, both had projects to do, like hooking things up and stuff. Now, these apprentices, they're using these lift trucks. And I'm standing there and I'm finishing hooking up this servo motor. And I look down and I'm like, what the fuck? The one scissor lift is like in line with where I'm standing. And I'm like, why is the other scissor lift like seriously, like 12 feet over, like way over there? I'm like, what are those two doing? They're freaking goofing around, fucking around, dogging it, right? I go walking down, you're walking down. I'm like, guys, what are you doing? Stop messing around with the freaking scissor lifts. And they go, well, we're not messing around with the scissor lifts. I'm like, what? And I look up, and there's the pipe from the one apprentice here, and there's the pipe with the other apprentice way over there. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Well, guys, what does this have anything to do with today's conversation? Well, it all started with that apprentice at the other end not using a measuring tape. And when he was off by, quarter of an inch, then another quarter of an inch became a half an inch, and a half an inch became, an inch, and then a foot, and then another foot. Guys, I'm not shitting you. It compounded, okay? And you think about this, even the law of angles, one little degree off here, but you go 100 kilometers, man, you're in a different freaking city, okay? And that's just pipe. And when it comes to running a job, guys, this compound effect, it's crazy. And the worst part, I think, is if you don't do this, guys, you get to a point in the job that it becomes unrecoverable. What do I mean by that, Barbara?
I had everybody stopped and made sure they were starting on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And then every so often, like, okay, stop. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. Stop. Because at the end, you're like this, as opposed to as you're doing it along the way, you stop, you reflect, make sure you're back on track. If you need to make any course corrections, they're minor, as opposed to holy mackerel. Now we've got to pull that all out and start at the beginning. And who's going to pay for this? Coming out of your bottom line.
Totally. We hear it a lot with contractors that come to us. And I don't think it's that intentional. It's just that you guys a lot of people don't really know the compound effect. They don't take the time to do these Gantt charts or map things out in an orderly way. And then they get all upset with their team. All right. Now look, this comes back to a couple things. We're going to talk about mindset for a little bit here, then which surrounds culture. And then we're going to make sure you guys get some, make sure you're clear on like, say, we're the next 3 or 5 steps moving forward with this. All right. So one of the things that I want to make sure that you get here is the mindset of I call the sacrificial lamb of time. It means at some point, guys, you got to pause. And that means even when something's moving. Okay. And I can't resist with these analogies. You think about it. I look at this almost like the scenario of you walk into a coffee shop. There's a fucking flood. The water's all over the place on the floor. Everybody's mopping it up. Everybody's got the towels. They're, man, we got this flood. We got to clean it up. Man, they're working. Fucking water. So it's getting worse. Then somebody smart comes walking in. And it's getting flooded even more. Some person takes the time, and what do, Barbara? They walk over to the tap, and they do what?
Turn off the water.
Right. But guys, there's a sacrifice of time. What do I mean by that, Barbara?
Sometimes you just need to stop. What my computer person says, stop, hands off the keyboard. Like you just need to stop, take a look around, and in that analogy, like, where's the water coming from? Where's the source? What is the source? Let's just go right to the source.
Right.
Shut us down for a day, but it's rather one day today than 2 weeks later.
Totally. Now, here's the thing, guys. I'm going to just touch on this mindset-wise. Is it difficult, Barbara? I got my own opinion on this, but is it difficult to switch that mind to go, fuck, even on that analogy of the water? Like, they know that when they're walking around trying to find the problem, there's more water coming on the floor.
Absolutely. I mean,
that's a challenge, right? Is that easy?
It's that little hinge that's going to swing the big door
right
to the rest of your business.
Yep. Guys, this is huge. You have to really ask yourself, all right, am I just dealing with symptoms or am I actually trying to solve a problem? And I mean that. It is a sacrifice. And I really mean it's a sacrifice. It sucks. It sucks for that person walking in. Maybe it's their business and it's being flooded and they can hear there's water coming in. It's pouring in all over the freaking place. and everybody's scrambling. They might be actually screaming at you, what are you doing, man? Get a towel, get a mop, get a bucket. And somebody has to take leadership, lead the ship and go, you guys keep doing that. I've got to lead this and frickin' solve this problem. Now, there's a lot of pressure, right? They could have their guys, we go back to a job site. They could be like, I need you. We got and it's tough. That's not easy, is it?
Absolutely not. I mean, because especially if you are a problem solver, right? And
right.
Typically you want to solve the big, you're triaging. You're like, what's the biggest thing I need to solve right now? To be able to stop that, to say in your mind and really get the big picture that actually the best thing to solve this is to stop and go back. And sometimes you just need to go back to your office or your truck and you just say, I need to look at the big picture here, as opposed to just keep reacting in the moment and react.
Yeah. It's so, another indicator, like just coming back to what you just said, is if things keep on going wrong, guys, the frickin' approach you're taking is not working. Yes, it might feel good to wear the frickin' Superman cape and come in and feel like you're saving the day. But honestly, you're not helping the team. You might be putting a Band-Aid on it and it feels good in that moment, and you walk away, then you get a fucking another phone call the next day, then you come back out for another problem. And then you're just like, I have no time to work on the business. I have no time to do the things that I want to do. Like this cycle of chaos just gets fueled and fueled and fueled. So yeah, it's going to be difficult. I'm not bullshitting you to see that water keep pouring on the floor while you go and find out where's the freaking leak, where's the tap, where. But if you don't do that, you're going to continue to deal with the problems you've got. Anything else you'd say about that, Barbara?
Comes back to the compounding. You just, at the end of the year, bottom line, you're maybe doing your tax and you're like, and I can't believe I didn't make any money. Like at that point, and maybe it would have been better for you to stay home and watch Netflix because you actually put money out, time, energy, and you're not further towards the freedom and the dream that you're here to create.
Yep, totally. If you're doing quotes right now, I'm not shitting you. If you are pricing any jobs, let's start with the small ones to begin with. If you're doing any small jobs in quoting, you're running any small jobs, if you're finishing any small jobs, and you've never done a Gantt chart and leveraged a Gantt chart to repeat the recipe for success on those jobs, no matter how different they are, considering the same, there's similar phases, all that. If you haven't, I fucking guarantee you are not quoting your jobs at the level of profitability, okay, that you should, okay? I guarantee you're not going to be able to see the things to improve your business, okay? What are some of the other things that they're going to miss out on? Let's just talk about from a team perspective. How does this help the team grow and improve, having these Gantt charts?
Actually, I just want to circle back for a second. The thing about the Gantt chart, you're thinking, well, it's got to be a job, like a multi-day job. Gantt charts are beautiful. Do it by the hour. I've done Gantt charts to the 30 seconds. Like you can take that and you can stretch it out or compress it as much or as little as you want. So on the very first try, maybe it is only a 2-day job. Perfect. You want to do your Gantt chart hour by hour because the thing is, we want to find where you're leaking time, right? And if you do it hour by hour and you think, okay, it's going to take me an hour to get in and get set up. And when you actually run it and you think, well, first I got to stop here and then I got to go to Home Depot and I got to pick this up. And then I got to go to the bank first. Now it's 4 hours into the day. And you're like, how come I didn't get this done on time? Right?
Yep.
And, to your point, Andrew, how does this affect your team? Number one, when you walk into a job and your boss says, okay, here's the blueprint. You're like, awesome. What's next? Awesome. It gives them security in knowing what's next. I don't know about you, but I love checking things off. Like, done. Check.
Yep.
It gives me such satisfaction to check things off. And here's what we used to do with our crews. We would say to them, here is your Gantt chart. And if you get done sooner, we're going to share in the profit.
That's cool. That is awesome.
Right?
You know, it's interesting you say that. I think this is huge what you just said. When you give a Gantt chart to your project manager, okay, your lead hand, your foreman, whatever you want to call this person, okay, the person that's going to run the job, could be you. Okay, you get to look at it and go, wait a second. Once you're on the job site and things are rolling, you actually get to see opportunities where it's like, hey, you know, we had scheduled a day to put in that 400 amp service. Now that I'm here and I'm looking at how we're going to be able to run these pipes more efficiently, oh my God, we can get this thing done in 4 hours. You know, that compounds itself as well. An extra hour here, half an hour there, 4 hours there. All of a sudden, you get your team to be motivated by what, Barbara?
They're going to feel good about getting it done ahead of time, especially sometimes we'd have 2 crews and we'd be like, okay, guys, who's going to get their job done first? And now you have this like camaraderie.
Right.
Motivation. It is motivation, and you feel accomplished and they have something to celebrate.
You know, and this brings us back to, you know, before we wrap this up, culture. You're either creating a culture team, you know, guys, as champion CEOs for your team and for yourself to set people up to be successful and to solve problems themselves, to enable them, okay, beyond you being instead of you being the Superman or Superwoman, it's about you enabling them to be the hero in their story, in their jobs that they're working on. It enables them and enables you down the road to do what? Delegate things. It enables you to have training, proper training in place for people and for everybody to learn together. You could have 2 similar jobs, you know, one at one end of the city, one at the other end of the city. All of a sudden you wrap it up. You got these, you know, Gantt charts. Oh, it should be roughly the same, right? It's the same house. It's, you know, same model. And then you come back and it's like, wait a second, this crew over here at the same level of quality did this in like a day less. How's that possible? Now you're going to be able to answer those questions as well. The flip side, why did it take the other crew an extra day to do this job? Like, guys, this is huge, okay? It also allows, not to get too deep into it, but this amplifies, trust me, Barbara, if you agree with me or not, this amplifies one of the biggest and hardest things that contractors face in delegating, which is quoting. How does this help to delegate quoting down the road?
Well, once you set up your templates, right? You've tried them, you've tested them. They're like, okay, yeah, this one works. I know this one works for this type of a job. Then you've got a template that you can delegate when you're training a new estimator, right? It's not reinventing the wheel. It's a system. You're creating your system.
That's it. Yep. And systems times people equals results. Okay. Like that's hands down. So what would be, you know, if there's one last thing that you would say or advice or to get these champion CEOs that are listening in to get them to sort of cross that line of like moving forward with initiating this, what would it be?
It's time to put the flag in the ground and say no more. I refuse to not know how my job is doing partway through so that I can make actual informed decisions so I can get back on track. And at the end of the year, the net profit is one job, creating the net profit you want, plus another. At the end of the year, what do you have? A year of coming to the net profit that you wanted.
Yep, 100%. So, you know, guys, I think my last thing, just piggybacking off what you said, is you got to do that sacrifice. Maybe it's not the right wording I'm using, but that's how I had to look at it. Like, you got to do that sacrifice. See, that means that you're going to have to go in on a Sunday. If you're packed, I'm sorry, it sucks. I wish it wasn't the case. Maybe you got to get up at 4 a.m. That's what I used to do. I used to get up at 3:30, man. So that it reduced the amount of impact on my family, but I had to sacrifice. Okay. I had to say that I'm going to put in this time with the belief and the knowing, especially from listening to this podcast, that this is not going to be a Band-Aid approach. This is actually going to start solving a problem. Okay. And I guess my last little thing is if you have a team, get them involved in this. You don't have to do all the heavy lifting, guys. Okay. Get them, to put in an extra couple of hours that you're going to pay them for to go and create a Gantt chart on one of these smaller jobs. And then that just creates a cascading effect. And you know what? You can do this You totally can do this. You have the skill set, you have the ability, you already do this in your freaking head when you're quoting the job. And if you're running any jobs, which a lot of you guys are, you're really good at this. You're actually really good, like the Gretzky of your trade at this. But it's about getting it out of your head, into your hands, and into the hands of your team, into the hands of your clients, even into the hands of your, suppliers. Like, it just becomes this ecosystem of success. So thank you so much, Barbara, for being on this call. Thanks for helping so many of our clients in so many other, in so many different ways. And especially this being one of your geniuses, especially with your background. And they can do this, right, Barbara?
Absolutely, they can do it. And they're going to feel really good when they start doing it. They're going to have win after win after win after.
Love it. Repeat success, right? Awesome. All right. Well, I'm Andrew Houston, guys, with another No Bullshit podcast. We will see you guys on the flip. And that's it. Ciao.
Hey, Rockstars. Thank you for watching the No Bullshit podcast for contractors. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button. And if you're serious about growing and need help, click on the link below. Myself and my team would love to help and give you the necessary tools so you can take your contracting business to the next level. And remember, dominate, delegate, and deliver.